question. I mean, I believe I can ask this because I'm assuming that all of you are taking a computer class and some of you are doing this is your main job. Are you going to school because you have nothing to do? I don't see hands. Or are you going to school because you want to get a job at the end of this deal? How many of you want a job at the end of this? Who doesn't want a job? I personally would have never wanted a job at the end of college. I had so much fun, but I had to go to work. You know, there's issues with getting a job. People need two things. You need shelter and you need food. So a job usually comes along with this mom and dad is going to supply it forever, and mom and dad won't. I guarantee you. Even I told mine, go get a job. So it's important to find that, and these are employers. And I will introduce them to you in a second. And these people who have gone to school, have been successful, have done good things, and they hire people. They may not hire you tomorrow, but they may know somebody who can hire you. So we are starting a process of, the industry already came and talked to the faculty. This is the year when the industry companies start going to talk to you, so you can learn to network, so you know there are people out there that actually are doing what you did several years ago, and done it now in terms of getting a job or basically getting a company going or being a recruiter. And that's important, folks. So let me introduce you some of the people who are here. Michelle Gray. Michelle, tell them a little bit about you.
I'm Michelle Gray. My company is Gray Sourcing. We provide professional staff as well as project management for the IT, science, and telecommunications industries here in the United States and some parts of Latin America.
Chuck Cooper.
Chuck Phillips.
Phillips.
That's okay.
I don't know why I'm thinking of Cooper.
Close enough. Chuck Phillips. I'm CTO and co-founder of Digitaria. Digitaria is a digital marketing agency owned by WPP. So WPP is the largest marketing and advertising conglomerate in the world. I run the technology team. We're about 250 people, and we're headquartered in San Diego here over on Petco Park.
With an interesting view.
With a great view of my favorite baseball team, who is not very good.
And here we have Brandon Rock.
My name's Brandon. I work with the Select Group. We're an IT staffing company. We work with the majority of the big companies here in San Diego up and through Los Angeles, and then we have offices throughout the United States as well. So, happy to be here.
So this is what we are going to do. The format is going to be very informal. And this is the format that we're going to conduct among all of these panels. We're going to have 9 this year. So at least you'll know different people who do what these people do. I'm going to ask them all, what is the number one thing that you look for in an employee? Chuck.
I look for someone who I can invest in. I'm going to generalize, I hope I don't offend you, but there's a difference in the people that apply for jobs today than when I started the business in 1997. And that is, they don't stick around. They like to job hop and earn $1 more somewhere else. And we have a lot of people that actually we have hired. They've jumped to another place and found out that the grass wasn't greener, and then they come back and ask for the job back, and we may or may not have to start back. But I look for someone I can invest in, and if they have the soft skills that I require, that I feel like makes them compatible with the team and the culture that we've built, and they have enough of a foundation of the technical skill, then I will invest in teaching them the delta, the difference between where they're at and where I need them to be. And if there's someone that I can invest in, that I can spend the time, and I know they're not just going to jump ship as soon as they've learned X, Y, and Z, then I will take the time and spend the money to invest in that person.
I'm going to ask another question to you, because I know that students come in and they go, they have an owner of a company here. What are the odds of me, city college student, being able to land a job with Chuck? Have you ever hired one of our students?
Ron Clark, who's one of my favorite employees, came from this program. He's absolutely terrific, and it was exactly what I described. Someone that's just a genuinely good person with the foundation of the skill set that we needed, that fits the culture because he's open to, he's a go-getter. He'll go and learn things on his own, and then he'll ask questions when he's gone as far as he can take himself. And then is, again, someone I can invest in. Someone that Ron today is amazingly, has advanced in a year to an amazing degree, but he will continue to advance because we're going to continue to challenge him. And so, absolutely terrific hire.
As well as the fact that he's a City College graduate himself. He came out of the City College program. He was heading to UCSD, but instead he started his
To
company.
start a business instead of graduating college. I don't recommend you not graduate college.
Don't follow him, just
Yeah.
be impressed by him.
Same question to both, goes to you.
Sure, yeah, so, I mean, you have to understand too, we're kind of the middleman between people like Chuck and you, so when we take requirements for what employers are looking for, it's always funny because it comes down to the technologies, and then there's always those two lines, it must be a good communicator, it must work well with teams. And for a while they were like, that's a dumb thing to ask because everyone does that, but you come to realize that it is so important that, kind of like what you're saying, it's easier to invest in someone that may not have some of the technical skills if you can work with them and they can benefit to the team in other ways. I don't know if you guys are talking about like agile environments and all those types of projects and the way that they work, but I think you would say as well that it's much more collaborative. Even with, we do a lot of contract to hire permanent. The collaboration effort in technology now is just much bigger than I think it's ever been. And so it really doesn't matter to be able to come in and contribute and not go against the grain, if you will. It's always just trying to really work together towards a common goal.
If I could, I like that point. And if I could share a little bit about myself, I went into IT, software engineering, thinking that I'm an introvert by nature, and that I could be behind a terminal screen and make a lot of money behind a terminal screen and not have to deal with human beings. I couldn't be more wrong. I had to break out of that introverted shell and learn to fake extroversion and communicate effectively with my peers and reach out of my comfort zone in order to become what the business needed me to become. And so IT is no longer a guy in a dark room or a girl in a dark room behind a terminal. IT is very much a collaborative space. I would echo that.
I think it's learning to say we instead of me. As a business owner, I've always, for the 25 years I've been in business, talked about what the company accomplished as a we. I may have been the one that initiated it or developed it or finished it, but it was always a we. And I think that mentality when you go into the workforce now will take you so much further than being I did that, I'm the one that did that, I'm the one that presented that, that was mine. Which you want a little bit of that because you want to be recognized for something that you did individually, but it is a different concept. I think for me, I look for someone I can have a conversation with. So much of your job hunting starts with a phone call from a recruiter because half of the companies and large corporations in this city and around the country work through recruiting firms. Vault supplies almost 90% of the personnel at Solar Turbine. Manpower and about 20 other companies provide all of the staff for Qualcomm. So to go to Qualcomm's HR department and go, hi, I'd like to work here, they're going to send you back to the IT companies that are recruiting. Do you guys recruit for Qualcomm?
Yes, we have.
You recruit. So Select Group would be one of those companies, and a lot of it starts from finding your resume, giving you a call, and is that first conversation, hi, I'm calling from the Select Group, I'm calling from Gray Sourcing, we just found your resume. Oh yeah. So it says here you have a certificate in blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So for me, my first attraction is a conversation. That you know how to sell yourself. Because as a business owner, I have to develop quick relationships if I want contracts and to stay in business. And you are individual businesses. As a resume toter, when you're taking your resume out, you are your best salesperson about who you are and what you're capable of. And if you're not comfortable presenting that, I would suggest you take a theater class. Seriously? Like a lawyer, a judge now who came up through the attorney ranks, her advice to my daughter was take a theater class, because it brings you out and it puts you in front and you have to articulate. And so if you're an introvert, at some point, if you want to get past being a desktop technician and move up into the network engineering and do some specifics, you'll have to feel comfortable with a full paragraph.
So, such a great point. I interview people on a regular basis. I no longer schedule hour-long interviews because I know in 5 minutes if
Yes.
this is someone that
Yes.
is this going to work. And so I schedule half an hour, and then I give 25 minutes of courtesy time, basically, because in 5 minutes I know whether or not you're the right person. And it's because of that reason. If you're a bump on a log and it's yes and no, it's not going to work. And so theater classes, Toastmasters, if you're familiar with that, speaking clubs, absolutely critical. And it does, and even if you're in desktop, even if you're just, if desktop's as far as you want to go, you still need these skills. They're still critical. After you go even a step higher, absolutely critical. I completely agree.
The best question you can ask in the interview, you should always go in with your own 1 or 2 questions, is, can you tell me what it is you're looking for that would make this position successful? And then they tell you, well, we want someone who's blah-de-blah. And then you think about where that fits into your background. You say, oh, well, I've done blah-de-blah here. I took a class in that. I was really good at it, and such, X, Y, Z. So you should be able to turn around your question, the answer back, you should be able to turn it around to how it fits, how you fit into that. And if you don't fit in, you don't want to work there. It's okay for you to decide it's not a fit for you as well. It just may not be your place. And then you wait until you find the next place where you feel also, oh, I'm going to enjoy working for Digitari, or the Select Group still has one of the City College students that started with him a 1.5 years ago, would you say?
That was right here.
Has moved him up. He's moved from San Diego to Anaheim and came through the City College IT program. So there's a lot that can be done with these programs. I'm curious about the focus of the students that are here. Are you programmers? Are you network engineer focused? Can I get kind of a general idea? Like, what are you studying? Yes, what is your...
Actually, I'm a faculty member.
Oh, you're a
computer
faculty.
business. I'm also studying how to help students
Good.
get into the IT career.
Perfect.
So what you're saying is helping me learn.
Good. Are you an IT student?
Yes.
What are you studying to? What's your focus?
Trying to do like programming.
Oh, programming, cool. What about yourself?
Me, programming as well.
Programming?
Programming.
Oh, this is Larry's class, programming class.
They are cream of the crop.
I know they
Yeah,
are.
because if they didn't come, that means they were not interested.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So let me explain you something, and let me talk a little bit about those who are getting programming. Right now, and you have to understand this, studies we've done for programming have identified that if you want to be, and depends the type of programmer you want to be, that you have to have a 4-year degree. How many of you are transferring to CSU? San Diego State. How many of you want to transfer to UCSD? And I see those people with no hands. Some of you are planning on doing this and that's it. How many of you just work for the associates? So let me put it to you in some perspective so you'll understand. I personally believed, that when I was going to school, that I had to have that BS in applied mathematics and computer science. And after paying, we got it, right? And I say we because there were people with me that helped me out, like my parents. However, it's changing. And programming per se by itself may not be enough. I found that out after I graduated. I got a degree. I had outstanding grades, and that wasn't enough. I needed to have something else. And networking became for me that alternative of the something else.
Right.
Because I landed a job, and people go, "You're really smart, right? Because you got that thing." I go, "Mm-hmm." So, but we don't want you to do that thing. I want you to see. And at the time, there was something called Banyan Vines. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. Maybe you do. So, and I had to set a network using Banyan Vines. Oh my. That was an amazing thing, but I did it, and this guy said, now you can go do that thing that I hired you to do, because you showed me you can do something. So I was amazed that my test to stay in the job was to do something that I had absolutely no idea what to do, but I knew how to read a book and follow directions. So I'm giving you this example because perhaps there's other things that you can do as part of electives of your coursework that could actually add on, because having a portfolio that is diversified in IT sometimes is helpful. It's like not being a master of all, because at the associate degree level you're not a master. You have general ideas, general concepts. Even for those who are going for the bachelor's degree, okay? You will realize that most likely you have to get a master's on top of that, because there's a lot of people with a bachelor's on top of everything. And they would like you to compete in the real world, and that the competition when they start hiring programmers is like you usually look for people with a higher degree, unless you have an awesome portfolio that you can show that you've done something out there. So my advice to you is to go, and while you're in school, there's always electives. Take an elective wisely. And I'm going to mention some of them. I'm going to start with some of the electives wisely, and we'll discuss that. And I'm not going to start with IT. Dr. Brady is sitting back there. Some of you know who Dr. Brady is. A lot of people have said that Dr. Brady has been my sidekick for several years, because besides being the dean, I used to teach. That's, unfortunately, I can't do that anymore. They won't let me. So, and it's not because I was not good at it, it's because I said, you know, teaching more. So, what happened was this. Years ago, I would say to myself, okay, I do these projects in my class. People hated projects, by the way, because they were group projects. And people used to tell me, I had a student who gave me my best liner ever. Rose, I'm like Beetlejuice. I don't work well with others. And I said, awesome, but you have to, because otherwise you're not going to get a job, or we have to get your job. So he started working in the group. And of course, there's a write-up, that ugly word, the write-up. And it was the 10-page write-up at the end of the class for each group. And I used to read these things with a lot of pain, because I couldn't understand half of the stuff that was written. It was poorly written, and it had nothing to do with not having the desire to write it well. It was writing sometimes doesn't come easily to people who are pursuing technical degrees, and that is something I don't understand. So I suddenly saw an improvement in a group, and I'm going, this is an improvement from day and night. Either somebody did it for them, or something great happened, and I need to know what that greatness was. So I grabbed the group, and I said, okay, who wrote it? And this guy wrote it. So how come it's so good, Dr. Brady's class? And that, I mean, you should have seen how fast he said it, because he knew that if he said something else, he would have been seen that he was doing affairs. So I wanted to see Dr. Brady. And he goes, yeah, he was in my class. And I'm like, what did you do? And he was telling me everything he did. So Dr. Brady, would you please tell them what is it that you taught them?
Well, the class is business communication. I have a student that's in one of my classes, and we focus on writing business letters, business memos, emails, resumes, and along with the resumes, some of the same things that guests were talking about in terms of how to present yourself on an interview and what to say, and kind of like controlling the interview from your standpoint to see whether or not it's really a place that you want to work. So it's really looking at some of the hard skills and some of the foundational skills, such as active listening and critical thinking, and making yourself appealing to an employer. Because the ultimate goal, as I see it, is I have to get you ready for a job, rather than to move on to the next class and the next class.
So that is one of the things, and I have, at lunchtime I was discussing this, which I can bring that of previous students that were my students and are now in his employers now, their employers now. And they came out of that. We then became, Dr. Brady and I, after that event, had decided to put our programs, commingle them, so the certificate in IT now requires business classes and vice versa. And after that, we started doing this. And our first cohort there, the people who graduated from that group are now those people that these employers have talked about. The other class is human relations, and I'm going to tell you why. Chuck mentioned something that is very true. You have a changed workforce. change because I have a changed student body. And I'm assuming there's a correlation between that change student body and the change workforce. And this is the issue. Students now, and I bet you, I hope I don't see any of you with that coming to my office with this thing. Dr. Foreman is a really hard teacher. I didn't come here to do all that work. You better go and talk to the man and put him in his place. I hear that. I've actually had that statement. And this is... And you know what the statement was to the student? Anybody can guess?
Good.
Huh?
Good.
I said, I am so glad that I'm paying Dr. Furman what we paid him. I actually have to go see him. And I'm going to tell him the fellow, please raise the bar a little more because I don't think it was enough. That was my answer. People are coming to us with an idea that this is supposed to be easy and everything is easy sailing and life is great and school is a piece of cake. And that when you leave here, these people are going to flock after you and say, please come and work for me. And that's not going to happen. Let me tell you what I used to tell students in my class, and Leroy knows this very well. He used to tell me that I needed to go take his classes. So, and I did. It didn't work. But I used to tell people, this is how it is. Your boss is going to tell you two things. He's going to tell you who's in charge, and if you don't want to follow the right directions, the door is there. Unemployment, here you go. And the other thing they're going to tell you is, this is your company, and you don't have to be there. And that's some things that people have a very difficult time understanding. There's one thing about, people tell me, well, that is harassment. No, that is not harassment, that is expectations. And I don't know when and how the shift took place, but it's shifted. I see that, how many of you have seen that shift in your lifetime? So,
Oh, yeah.
you had something to say?
No.
Good! Yes! What is his name? So anyways, this is what I want to talk about. Start getting yourself grounded, literally. Put your feet on the floor and draw realistic expectations from your teacher and from yourself. And IT is not for everyone. But if you really want it, you can do it. And if you do it, there's success and there's possibility out there. Who disagrees? I'm not the one who's giving you the grade, that's him. Anything that you may want to ask the panel, please.
So, for you guys, when you look at an applicant, how much do you value an actual 4-year degree versus someone who has skills and experience?
Really good question, actually. So, again, taking requirements from a hiring manager, they throw that out a lot, saying like you need a bachelor's degree. We usually just look right past it because I do find it silly that if someone has the skills and they don't have a 4-year degree, that really doesn't prove, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't prove it. So it's worth at least bringing it up. Now you will find companies sometimes that, especially if the intent is to bring this person as a permanent employee, it's just part of their HR policy. So I would say that 75% of the time is something that is looked past, but there are always those ones that do require it.
Has anybody heard of Apple Swift? So you have Objective-C, you write for native applications, and now Swift came out, the new language. Right. So as soon as it was announced, resumes were found on the internet saying requirement of 2 years or 3 years of Apple. It's just like, it's not critical if you have the resume, if you have the portfolio, if you have the experience, it doesn't matter. It's about you. And the reason we meet with you face to face is to find out if you are the right person. Your resume is just a way to get to sift some of the chaff from the wheat. If you're the wheat and you've made it to a face to face, that's where Michelle said, it's so critical that you be able to sell yourself. You're not applying for the position to act. You're not a salesperson, but you have to sell yourself enough to make it through that, so that we can then become coworkers, and then You don't have, it's not this adversarial interviewee-interviewer relationship. But if you can get through that, that's the hard part. And so your experience, your portfolio matter, and then the way you present yourself, the things you say and the things you've done. So to answer your question, I mean, and it depends also. That's my answer. But he sees more hiring managers. I'm one of many, but my peers that I've spoken to, at least in my network, would probably say the same thing.
I think the most important thing, Susan Rose, that you get from either finishing an AA degree or a BA degree, a Bachelor of Science, rather than BS, is that you have been in school for 2 consecutive years writing and communicating. And that was our key difference with the contracts that we have. We have a lot of government contracts. They will require that you have a degree because everything has to fit in a box. But one of the things that I found as an employer after 20 years and of all of these, this is more of my support staff, a lot of the employees that I had who did not have a bachelor's, they did not write. Their level of communication was still at a conversational level and not at a business communication level. And so we spent a lot of time redoing their stuff. So it was almost a burden on the rest of us because someone didn't finish getting that formal education. So it isn't about what you're going to get out of Dr. Foreman's class. It's about what you're going to get out of being in school for 2 years straight or for 4 years straight. So if you want to get a bachelor's, it should be for you because the difference in you getting a job is going to be A, your personality, and B, what else you've done with yourself in this 4 years. So that, are you part of a meetup group? Are you part of a programming group? Do you do anything outside of going to this class? Do you have any group of friends where you guys get on and you create stuff together? The gentleman that runs Comic-Con is a son of a friend of mine. He started with networking clusters they used to do, and about 4 or 5 of his friends would build a network and they'd all try to crash each other's network, and that was what they do. That was their weekend fun. That kind of mentality, when he came out for a job, he was already way above the rest of everyone else that had done some classwork. So the bigger thing for you, if you're ready to go and apply at some of the bigger companies that are hiring right now, what else have you done besides go to class? Where are you networking? Digitaria, the bulk of their employees, besides the few that come from some of the colleges, knew somebody who knew somebody. And we're not talking about his uncle, we're just saying that they were a part of something at a luncheon that they mentioned, by the way, I'm looking, we're looking for someone who's got the blah blah skills. So it's not just the bachelor's, it's going to be what are you doing right now as a programmer to get you outside of your classroom that you can say you've actually developed an application, you played around with it, you worked for the church, you did it for your mom's group, blah, blah, blah. So what else are you doing? But the bachelor's will give you the ability to be in more of a management position maybe, because you've spent 4 years writing and researching. That's what happens when we're in college that long. Right?
You had a question.
In looking at some job postings, I've been a little bit confused or overwhelmed by the specialization is expected, just because classes that I take here are more broad-based fundamental programming skills. So could you speak a little bit about how strict the requirements are for specialization, and if someone has an entry-level lab, how specialized we expect them to have a direction? Or is it more like you were saying, you're going to train them to find their specialist?
That's such a great question, and I think the key phrase was entry-level applicant. If you're coming in, you're commanding this, you want to command this high salary, I'm going to look for very deep knowledge, very deep experience. If you're entry-level and you're just getting started in the workforce, and you're not commanding this high, your requirements for employment are less than a more senior applicant, then my expectations are going to be lower, and my willingness to invest in you is going to be higher. So if it's all about what you want from me, and depending on how much you want from me, I'm going to want more from you, and vice versa, actually. So if you you're saying, I'm a senior Objective-C developer, then I have a very high expectation. If you're saying, I'm an entry-level intern, then by nature I'm going to come at you with lower expectations.
To specify a little further though, like, just looking at postings like front end versus back end versus.
Oh, sure.
Like all of these more minor subtleties and titles.
No, and I correct you, I don't think there's subtleties. You do have to pick your horse, at least which horse you're going to ride in the race, at least in my business. You guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but who's web in here? Are you web programmer? Or are we native?
That's a sort of kind of yes.
Native mobile? What are we programming? Are we mobile apps? PHP, so you're web. You're web backend. Is anybody doing jQuery? So jQuery is a front-end technology. And over the years, back when I started my business, the engineers did both. Up until recently, engineers did both. You'd have engineers that could write fairly decent JavaScript, and they'd write a markup, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. They'd also write the back end. Now, it requires specialty. And you can't have a generalist anymore. So you have to choose. It's even such that I have security people. So I have a dedicated security staff that all they do is peer reviews, they analyze code, they test systems, they try and hack into systems so before hackers hack into our systems. Then I have engineers that are focused on specific stacks, like the open source stack, PHP, Ruby on Rails, Python. Then you have .NET, Microsoft Windows.NET, and you've got Java, the Java stack. And we have dedicated teams, and we've got another discipline for front end. So actually my largest team in my department is front end development, and they focus solely on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, excuse me. So being a generalist means you're entry level to me. If you're coming in, you're saying, I've done a lot of stuff on the front end, I've done a lot of stuff on the back end, I've tinkered with some security tools. You're then a generalist, and you're entry level. If you come out with me with 2 years, like you said, as a hobbyist, I work with the JavaScript user group, I attend every meeting, I've led meetings, even while I was in school. I went to this hackathon, and we built this thing at this hackathon while I was in school, and that to me, your stock just went up, skyrocketed. Like Michelle said, it's what you're doing. The degree is important because it says, I can finish something, I have the foundational knowledge, foundational skill, but what I've done, if you come without a degree, that's okay, but I'm going to ask you why you didn't get a degree. What were you doing instead of going to school and getting your degree? And how deep did you go? And based on that answer, we're going to find out where we can place you in the organization. But you do have to choose which technology, because it has gotten specialized. Security. Security is very lucrative, by the way. Security. Front end, back end cloud systems, back end for mobile, front end for mobile. So there's a lot of diversity.
But I think he's saying that when he sees a requirement, when he sees a job description, it has all those specifics, and he knows he doesn't have it, he's just coming out of school, how critical is that to you when you're judging to go, should he apply anyway if he's got 3 of them?
If we can match my expectations.
Okay.
So if you're a generalist, that's okay, but you can't be a generalist or entry level and expect to command the same salary as a senior person. So if we can meet in terms of expectations, yes, you should. You should. But you need to make sure that you've got that foundation. All the communication, soft skills, that's required. If you're not doing that, if you feel weak in that, shore that up. Talk to Leroy, attend his classes, shore that up. Attend Toastmasters. If you don't know what Toastmasters is, write that down and Google it. Attend it regularly. Shore that up. If you can't communicate or write an email, fix that ASAP. But you won't get a job if you can't. That's just, you won't ever get a job if you can't. But on top of that, then go deep. If you're passionate about JavaScript, know all the different frameworks. I know Ember, I know Angular, I know jQuery. I've done jQuery since I was a baby. No? Go deep.
H2.
Yeah, H2, jQuery.
I wanted to add just one thing. I guess on our side, I would always say, like, it's a pretty lame quote, like the Wayne Gretzky quote, where you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. If you see a job description that's a bit daunting, worst case scenario, your resume just ends up in someone's inbox. You know what I mean? So it's having the right expectations. If you get that call back, you know, admit your skill level, how high or low it may be. But I would suggest not putting yourself out there strictly based on counting yourself out at the start, because you never know. The person looking at it may have something in their back pocket that they're not advertising at the moment as well. So.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me add something that Chuck mentioned, and this is something I don't see anymore. But it used to be, and there still are, user groups for almost anything out there, literally. And our students used to say, when I would talk to them, what user group we belong to, and I could hear, well, I belong to this, that, X, Y, Z, and there was always more than one. How many of you belong to a user group?
Which one do you belong to?
Well, I guess I'm confused about the definition of a user group. What, like a group for enthusiasts of like a single thing?
Where all of you are using Java, and so you meet.
They're like clubs.
Yeah, robotics. Yeah.
Robotics.
Robotics,
That's great.
okay. Which one are you?
Robotics.
Robotics, also.
That's great.
See, we have a campus, the campus needs to start, and this is something that we are listening to even if we have to develop a user group within the campus. So you guys can actually do some extracurricular work. As you talked about the hackathon is huge in the Melbourne, California. We haven't done them here, we are planning on it. But it's to give you avenues so that you can go ahead and participate outside the class. Because I know that most of you have time to do your Facebook or whatever it is social media that you have, or play whichever game you do. How many of you play an online game? Please don't, please raise your hand. I know who you are. So, the deal is this, if you have time for that, you have time for that.
I think now they're meetups. Are they called meetups now? Maybe that's more in line. I see. And I have advertised in meetups for job openings that we've had. We're scouting in Virginia and trying to find someone. I've gone to a Linux meetup and sent my little notice out. And I'm always surprised when someone responds like there's someone out there. But it's another way for people to find you, but it's more importantly, it's a way for you to keep playing around with your craft and with the skill sets that you want to develop.
LinkedIn, folks, what do you think?
Love it.
Yeah.
You should have a nice LinkedIn page. It doesn't have to have a whole bunch of fancy stuff, but it should have a nice picture, a nice JCPenney's picture, just a little thing here, or one for the passports, whichever, you can go to Costco. But you definitely should have a nice, professional-looking photo on LinkedIn, because that's the first thing I do whenever I know we're looking at a government contract. They're coming to meet with us tomorrow. I've already LinkedIn them, so I know exactly what they look like before they get to my office. So and we hired someone, and I'm telling you, he's ended up to be exactly what we perceived with his picture, because his picture's like this. And it hasn't worked. So if you're serious about it, you should have a professional picture on LinkedIn, even if it's just your name and that you're a student. It's okay to say you're a student. And a few things that you've done, and your friends can recommend you. Or what do? They what's that piece down at the bottom? Where they endorse, yeah.
Another piece you talked about is the picture. You had a guy who didn't look very, like droopy the dog.
Yeah.
I have seen some. I don't know what people That's, I understand this. I'm a foreigner and I'm very proud of it. And sometimes I didn't understand some of the implications of the subliminal messages behind them. But they were pretty crude, so I always ask myself, what does that mean? And he slapped them out. So, now you understand? The other one is your Facebook page. If you can sanitize it, do not, put one out for your private stuff and have one that is for your public stuff. But, I have seen people, I actually check people out sometimes when they're coming for me for an interview on something. And let me tell you, I've seen some and it's like, no, we really cannot have this image here. Because image is important. I tell people who work for me, and Dr. Foreman knows this, I tell you, you can do anything you want, but don't make us look bad. Because you are us. You're the image of City College as a student, as faculty, as staff. When you go work for, let's say, the HRE or resourcing, you're the image of resourcing. The owner of Southland Technology 3 years ago told me this. He said that when people send an email that has southlandtechnology.com as the domain name, that email is coming from Southland. It doesn't matter who wrote it, it's coming from Southland. You are the voice at that point of that company for that customer. So you have to know how to answer or to address that email. It's not the fanciness of how to use Outlook or whatever. It is the statement that you're making. Hello. Instead of just stating or blurring something into the message. And the other one is when you answer the phone. How many of you have called somebody and the person has less than desirable mechanisms to answer the phone? I call a student. I call students often because they leave me messages. They have a complaint like, oh, Dr. Foreman is killing me, so I have to call him. And this guy answers the phone, and this was biblical. Yo! I'm like, bye! And there was never, Terry knows how big I am on that. And of course, you have not answered my voicemail, sir. Yes, I did. You were the yo man, I was the bye woman. And that ended it. So you have to understand that when you are answering, even if it's your cell phone, and you're expecting somebody because you put an application, yo doesn't apply, okay? Think about that because that impression would last forever. I will know always the name of that student and the way he answered that phone. And Leroy knows that with me is forever. Right, Leroy?
Yeah, she does it again.
Any questions for the panel? Go ahead, sir.
So you spoke about the rise of your staffing firms. And that's kind of new. Staffing firms and hiring for these third-party companies.
Right.
That's a little bit surprising to me. So I was just wondering if you could talk about why that is. Doesn't Qualcomm know what Qualcomm wants? I mean, why do they need to go through you?
A simple solution is try before you buy. And it's not like,
So contract and temp work.
it's not something, it's like, I think that's a crude statement, but I mean, honestly, that's some of the feedback we've gotten. It's like, look, they have a budgeted position, they can hire this person directly, we take the liability. And so, when you talk about presenting yourself, being able to come in and work with a team, you have a 3 to 6 month time to prove whether, you present yourself well, you can talk the talk. Now you have to show that what you were talking about was actually true. And if you present yourself properly, I think as you were especially expressing, that should never be a problem. It really shouldn't,
I'm curious how that fits in though with Chuck, right?
Yeah.
How when you were talking about the desire to invest in entry-level applicants, because it seems like that wouldn't match very well, contract work they want.
He doesn't contract.
Well, I do,
You don't,
but
you do
I
staff
do.
recruitment?
I do staff.
Have you seen the problems that I'm pointing to that a
Yeah.
contract temp employee, they don't have the same either willingness to invest because they're potentially a temp employee, and at the same time, they're, the entry-level applicants who need the investment aren't going to fit well in the temp contract environment.
It applies because the liability lies with the greater positions, the more senior positions. So if I'm hiring a director level position, and me hiring them directly is risky, right? This is an expensive role. It's, we never work together. You run the network's great, but who knows? That's probably a bad example because I've never hired from an agency for a director, but say senior software engineer. I don't know. I have no idea. And am I willing to take the chance and enter into this marriage with this person? Effectively, that's what it is. I'm committing to employ this person, and I don't want it to be very short term. So I test the waters with a recruiting firm. But for an entry level position, I don't. I go directly. And we network. I found Ron through the program here, right? I didn't go through a firm, and asked, interviewed Ron directly and asked people who knew Ron, and I didn't go through a firm. So it wouldn't make sense for an entry level person. At least in my opinion.
Yes.
How many people does it take to go through to get to the right person for, say, a Qualcomm position?
Can you
How many
elaborate?
resumes?
How many trial contract people do you actually usually?
Oh, not many. I mean, it's not like they're like, great, we're gonna try 5 to get to the 1. It's just, it's literally just a little bit of being able to rest a little easier in the process. Especially if it's slated as contract to hire. Now, mind you, with like Qualcomm, sometimes they just have a big rollout and they need someone for 6 to 12 months, whatever it is, and they don't plan on keeping them. But if we have a contract to hire position, 90% of the time that person is going on full time.
So the person that you selected, or you said this would be a good match, usually goes on.
Correct. Yeah, and because the hiring manager still does their due diligence. It's not like we run them through the whole gambit and then say, great, day 1, you're ready to start. He's still making the decision. We're just bringing them to his attention. So.
And Rose, I had bootylicious at hotmail.com. In one of my outlook classes one
Are you
time.
serious?
This question is for Brandon. Okay, let's say students attend City College, they get their associate degree in IT or computers or programming or whatever the degree is in. And now they're ready to look for a job. And let's say they go to you and say, here's my skills from City College. And I'm willing to start maybe as an intern and work my way up in a company. Is that a good way to do it? And what steps would they have to take to do that?
See, I think that's a great way because I think based on, especially what hiring managers talk about with finding those other skills, internship is one of the best ways to do it. If you don't have any, you need something, you know what I mean? And sometimes it's an unpaid internship, but I think that's just kind of part of the struggle of getting to that next level. And I'm sure you would always appreciate the sacrifice that someone's made if they're truly passionate about what they want to do. I think it's a great way to prove your passion. Like, hey, it's like an unpaid internship because I want to work with XYZ technology. I think that's an outstanding show of character to get where you want to be.
Okay.
You ask another question?
You all mentioned the shift in terms of the workforce and loyalty is a problem. And what I've heard you're talking kind of on your end, what you're looking for is to pick employees that will be more loyal. But I'm also wondering if you could elaborate on what it is you're doing as companies to generate loyalty to your company.
That's such, again, really great question. For us, we spend a lot of money basically trying to create a culture, environment, and activities that make the place that our company a great place to work at. So, you see, we're not Google, we don't give free haircuts and do your dry cleaning for you, but we have regular company events. Tomorrow, actually, my entire team's going paintballing. So we're taking the entire day off and we're all going paintballing in Escondido. But, we have field day, we have holiday parties where every employee gets a gift, usually iPods and media players, and they're pretty decent gifts. And we have 250 employees, so it's significant expense. Not to mention the venue that we rent out and part of all the entertainment. And we do these things on a regular basis. We have things in the office, shuffleboards. Who went to our office? Just
The faculty. The faculty.
so we have seats behind third base at the Padres. It's on and on and on and on. And we do these things, A, because we think they're important to maintain the culture, but it's also to understand that this is what is expected of a media company. These are kind of our minimum requirements for employing talented, important people. And since people are our business, our product is people, we don't make software, we sell people to companies. You're a talented person, we talk to a big brand, and we understand their need, and you help solve that need, you help solution that need. And so in order to keep talented people, we need to keep them happy. But that's such a great question.
A lot of our focus when we would take our policy of taking good care of our employees was that so much of our employees' service was client-focused. And so our mentality was, if we take good care of you, you'll take good care of the client. And that was how we operated. So it isn't even so much, and I'm sure they don't come to work every day thinking, how can we keep everybody happy so they won't leave? But just that part of being a small business, though they've grown past small business, is that you develop this family environment anyway. When you end up with a good company, the environment is one where half your time is spent there. And so you're more than likely the owner wants it to be a good environment because that's just part of how they operate. That's part of how their mindset is. Probably part of the mindset of a lot of business owners is they want you, who've now become a part of the family, to enjoy being here every day. So it isn't even designed so that we hope they don't leave, we're going to get you whatever you want, but we developed this because this is how we like our home life to be, our work life to be.
Excellent point.
Yeah.
Excellent point. We have a rule, no able rule. So we don't hire people who are that are just able.
Yes.
So I'll tell you a story.
Exactly.
There's this guy that we moved from San Francisco, super high position, supposed to change our business, like the most talented guy, blah, 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 right? We hired the guy, we moved him to San Diego, and we fired him after 4 weeks because he was a complete a-hole. So that's another thing. But that's another thing we're doing for our employees. We're keeping our culture, we're keeping our company a place where you want to be,
right,
where you're happy being, where you're not miserable going to work every day. And one of the most important things is to keep the a-holes out of the company. Right. No politics, no bureaucracy, minimize bureaucracy, no politics, no a-holes. So there's like the games and the playing, and that's a little piece. It's expensive, but it's a little piece because we don't. Every day isn't paintball. This is a 1 year. It just happens to be tomorrow, right? But we do once a year in my tech team. But keeping good people in the organization is so critical.
I think it's a very, I want to say, lucky time that you see the ebbs and flows of the economy and all that, and where a few years ago, having a job was just, that's all you wanted. But it's coming back around that now it's not just an employer's market, it is an employee's market as you get better on in your skills. So, sometimes at first, you have to take the job that maybe you don't love to get to that next level, but as you continue to progress in your career, believe me, San Diego it's not that huge. People know where good people are, and as you start to get a better and better reputation, people are going to fight for you. And I think the companies here are starting to realize that by doing these outside-the-box ideas to retain their top talent.
Even at the select group internally, if you go online, you see that there's a lot of camaraderie that happens because that's how you have a successful business. I looked at your website, and it's actually a really cool website, but is that the owner of the company?
Yeah.
The owner is involved. Recruiting is very hard. It's very hard because you can send 10 of your best resumes and someone still goes, I don't like any of those. Please go back and get me blah-blah, right? So to keep a recruitment team excited, you have to have an environment where everyone feels like they're important and and they're a part of the success of the company. And that's where you want to work anyway, right? I think that those jobs that you're talking about, where everyone hates to come to work and the boss is kind of rude and nasty, I don't think that's the IT world. I've been in IT a long time, right? And I don't think that's the environment that the IT
Things
would
change.
survive in.
Things
Yeah.
have changed. You no longer have the,
Bad boss.
yeah.
That you have to stay and work for 20 years.
And see, let me mention something else, and again, we have to respect your time. I told them that
Oh,
we're done, and we are almost there, or should we pass the time? But I must add something, because I do research on, before we invited every one of these people to this group, and they also belong to the advisory group, so that we can research the people, because, again, we have the no-a-hole group. We can't do that. But one of the things that I know is that these people also pay a fair wage, a realistic wage. I mean, I don't have any sweatshop owners in the group to come and talk to you. However, we have to also be realistic. As you mentioned, high-end jobs come with high-end pays and also come with high-end requirements. And if you're realistic, and I know how much you're paying my person, so thank you very much. I'm going to say this, he pays a very fair salary. And most of the people, I will not send any student of mine, and everybody knows, at least the faculty that I deal with, and when I get a job referral, when I send out, I will never send something up that is a sweatshop. I will make sure that at least at a minimum, we're looking at $50 an hour. Trust me, that is a decent start to pay for an intern, very entry-level position in our areas. Because it gives you the opportunity to start with something that you can build your resume, and within a year, I guarantee you that you will not be at $50 an hour. Okay?
Would you guys like to know the salary ranges for programming and software development? You guys are just want to offer some ranges for kind of level 1, level 2, what they should expect?
It all depends on, yeah, I mean, I can swag it, but swag stands for super wild ass guess. You're looking at intern 15 an hour to senior engineers over $100,000. I have managers and engineers that are making close to twice to $200,000 a year, so it's a pretty wide range. And I don't know if those guys are called college grads, because I don't remember. They do the job and they're awesome. They're worth every penny. So, it's a big range. And maybe you can get more specific next week.
Starting kind of like that 15 an hour usually is hourly for some reason, but yeah, I mean, geez, I talked to a guy yesterday that makes $200 an hour. He's a database engineer working with like Hadoop and all that big data stuff, but I mean, just to get the guy on the phone, yeah, it was. I mean,
that's
if you're making
$400,000 a year.
I mean, seconds of this conversation cost like $20.
But I think that 75,000, 80,000 range is pretty
that's a good-
comfortable when
sure.
you've got the experience, you've got specialized skills. That's probably where you'll hover unless you move into more certifications or branding. But when you're starting out, 30 to 40,000 is probably a comfortable place to be.
I would
And
say
you determine how far
like
to
a
go.
5. Okay, so to break it down, so maybe 5 to 8 years. Let's use C# developers. Are typically what we're seeing is like, let's say $40 to $60 an hour.
$60,000 a
So
year, or
40
$40
to
to
$60
$60
an hour. So
an
that comes
hour.
out to
Oh,
80 to
that's
120.
100, yeah.
Yeah, but
So-
at that point, you're looking at a C# developer, which you're looking at somebody who's just more than doing one single computer science.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And then front end, we talked about front end. Front end is typically less than back end. I'll just throw that out there. But it doesn't mean, it's not a lot less. Most senior front end guys just make a little bit less than my most senior back end guys. The most expensive roles, not management roles, are security, big data, you mentioned big data, so analytics. deficit of security people in the industry, and so because there's so few, they're able to command really high salaries. Supply and demand.
Yes.
I guess on that subject of getting to a certain skill level of specialization, is there, would you say like a certain threshold, like for a lower end of skill? Like obviously, people in this class are going to continue expanding and deepening their skills and knowledge, but is there like a cutoff point you would say for?
I have a lot of employees that still attend school. I have a guy that's getting his BS. He's a full-time employee who worked around his school schedule. I would say if you stop learning, what's the quote? I think it's Thomas. I don't remember who said it.
Someone named Tom.
Someone, oh, I said Thomas Jefferson. I'm paraphrasing, I'm going to blow it, but basically, when you stop learning, that's when you're old. If you stop learning in my industry, you will soon you'll be passed by, and we'll be having a conversation, right? We'll have to talk about whether or not you want to be employed here. You have to continually learn. You have to always know more than the client, but always know more than the competition. Always know more than your peers. You have to always strive to expand yourself. So the answer is no. We're going to accommodate that learning. We're going to expect you to learn on the job, but also off the job. That's why I talk about all this extracurricular stuff. If you're not a part of a user group or a meetup, why? Do you not really care about what you're doing? In programming, you have to live and breathe it. You have to be a hobbyist. If you're doing this as a 9 to 5, I'm probably not going to ready.
So how do you judge an applicant who's technically who's going through a career shift? So their resume is a lot of stuff on it that's not what they want to go into.
Same answer as the people who don't have degrees. I don't care as long as you're the right guy or gal, as long as you have the experience. I hired somebody that had a PhD in philosophy and became one of a terrific program, just absolutely terrific. But philosophy didn't work out, and he made the jump to computer science and engineering and became a terrific asset. So, I mean, it tells me something. Like if you got a PhD in philosophy, it tells me you can see something through, right? You're a smart guy, and that's important, and someone we can invest in, right? So if you're the most senior philosopher on the planet, and I'm hiring for a computer programmer, and you have enough skill on the computer programming side that we can invest in you, that's terrific. It doesn't mean something.
Did you say a shift worker?
No, a shift of career.
Oh, a shift of career. Because I've seen that shift worker who was, decided to change careers, and again, it all goes back to what are you doing to be in the industry? What kind of meetup groups are you